All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 4:03 p.m. Thank you all for coming today. Again, all the ASEWU Council members, really appreciate coming in here to this work session. We have a great special guest today. We have Dr. Arévalo, Dr. Rex Fuller, and Dr. Julia Smith, of course. But first, let's go ahead and take a roll call. Make sure that every single one of us is here present today. So when you hear your name, please just say aye to make sure that you're here today. Thank you. DJ G. Grace. Present. Samson Hatton.
Aye.
Cassie Bratton.
Aye.
Kyle Dudson.
Aye.
Mariana Garcia.
Aye.
Samantha Frank. Alright, I think she's in her class, probably doing an internship. Kelly Watson. Sorry, Kelly Kelsey.
Kelsey Kelly.
Kelsey Kelly. She just got married, so her last name changed.
Present.
Kendall David.
Aye.
Brenda Harvard.
Aye.
Ryan McCullough.
Aye.
James Grayson-Hauer.
Aye.
Nick Bell.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So if you all would like to take a minute to approve the agenda, just kind of overview the agenda. Let me know if there is anything missing from the announcements, from any of the items on the agenda, and we will make any modifications as needed.
We should probably add the item for the ACM computer terminal thing that we talked about at the council meeting.
Yep. So let's add it up. So Samson has recommended that we add an item under announcements. Item I after F. G. Sorry, G. It's Friday.
we should put it under. We should put it under discussion items number 6.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? All right. So let's add it to discussion items then. Number 6. ACN. All right. Is there any other modifications to the agenda you'd like to make?
I just want to add a comment to 8 announcements for D, just to talk about Senator Michael Baumgartner's visit.
Okay. Senator Michael Baumgartner visit. Is there any other items that need to be added or corrected? All right. Thank you so much. There is no objections to the agenda, so the agenda has been approved. So we'll move on to the guest speakers. This is the most important part of our work session today. We have the privilege to have the 2 gentlemen and Julia Smith, of course. They came down here to do a presentation on the quarter to semester discussion. I would really like to introduce EWU President Dr. Arévalo, Dr. Rodolfo Arévalo, and the Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Rex Fuller. If you would like to continue with your presentation in regards to the quarter to semesters and enlighten the ASEW students in regards to the background of this information in the quarter to semester discussion.
Okay, what we wanted to do today is really give you a synopsis of what's available in the website that we've put together that has documentation that has been gathered over the last 2.5 years about quarters to semesters. I think that this first slide really shows you a timeline that we're sort of following at this point. We really began the quarters to semesters discussion in February of 2010. And so this may be the first time some of you have heard it, but it's been around for a while. And it shows you some things that we did over the course of the last 2 years. I basically commissioned a research, if you will, committee that began to look at the pros and cons of academic calendars, in this case, quarters versus a semester calendar process. And the whole intent of that study, if you will, was to evaluate and compare quarters to semesters, to review national and regional institutional calendar types that exist, not only in the United States but in the state of Washington, to identify and review plans for institutions that have moved from quarters to semesters over the last 10 years, and in the event that EWU was to move to semesters, to look at issues associated with making such a move. And that's really what was done over the course of the first year of looking at quarters and semesters. And then from that, one of the key projects, or one of the key results of the first research effort, was to really begin to look at, and if you look at the documentation that's on the website, it begins to identify differences between quarters and semesters. And so one of the things that we tried to do is to also then identify the differences as it might apply to students, to faculty, to the university as a whole, in terms of either pros and cons. Okay?
Yeah. So this was a study that was chaired by Dr. Pratt, who couldn't be here today. But this first slide shows you some of the results of looking at this literature from examples of universities that had transitioned over the course of the previous few years. Again, this study was done in 2010, so it's picked up from that point, if you will. And what was true then, which is true today, is that most of the government institutions, in fact, all of Washington State, in the state of Washington, are on the quarter system. That's still true. And then what's still true today is most high schools, college universities nationally are on the semester system. For universities, it's in excess of 90% of the universities are on semester. And the trend has been 4 semesters over the past 15 years or so. So those are things that are in the data, if you will. This next slide gives you some more examples. We have some transitions here, so I have to click the button a few times. Here we go. So quarter, these are some of the things that would be sort of in the advantages column, if you will. A larger number of students can be accommodated because you have an extra term throughout the year. It provides greater flexibility in scheduling, and that's for 2 reasons. There are more courses required in a quarter world by the time you graduate. You take a few more courses to add up to your 180 credits when you do the semester world. And you have 10 weeks, which allows for the ability to be flexible and offer electives in ways that are different than they are in the semester world. And the argument that I think Julie and I heard at the Senate meeting many times was the degree to pick up the last 2 points, the highly specialized courses from time to time, and then the greater array. So that gets at the issue of the specialization or elective in something. It's a 10-week course as compared to a 15 or 16-week course. So those are in the plus column, if you will, for quarters. On the semester side, you have a number of efficiency arguments. You have fewer schedules, fewer terms, if you will, 1 less cycle time each year, 1 less registration each year, those kinds of things. Residential move-ins, you have 1 less of those. You have better opportunity for linkages to the rest of the world. So this is where the internship piece comes into play. Some majors, like education, get synced up with the K-12 calendar in ways that are advantageous for what they do when they do their practicums, for example. The piece that's not identified here is it also means that when you graduate with the majority of the graduates around the nation. So you graduate in early May rather than mid-June. So there's the job market effect as well, which is not on this slide. It may be later. And then the idea there is you get efficiency. Another piece on efficiency, I would say, since we are Eastern, is that since we share a campus with Washington State, there is the possibility that we will match up with that calendar at River Point and create efficiency there as well. So that's another unique feature of Eastern, is our downtown campus. So again, these are pluses and observations in both quarter and semester. The quarter is a 10-week quarter. So the idea is if you fall behind, there isn't as much calendar time to catch up. So a bit like a sprint as compared to a longer run, if you will. The upside is that if you have difficulty with 1 class, you can take it the next quarter. And you have 3 terms to take it rather than just 2. So there's a plus and a minus there, if you will. The enough time issue relates to really the calendar time. With 10 weeks, you've got kind of this ability of time and pressure. And you'll pick up on this here in a minute with the projects. So I'll come back to that point. The upside is you get courses in a faster pace or intensity. So you move from one subject to the next, quarter to quarter. That can be seen as an advantage, at least in some quarters. The semester world, class periods per day tend to be shorter, although that's a design feature. In the 15 to 17 week modeling, that would be true. The pace allows for catch-up. Let me tell you what that means. What it really means is you've got more calendar time from start to finish. So you have 15 to 17 weeks, which means that you maybe have a few more weekends, to use an example. I once was a student, hard to believe, but I once was a student. And weekends oftentimes were about crunch time on term papers or projects. And you have more weekends in a semester than you do in a single quarter. So that's a piece of what's argued there, I believe. And then the third point is it allows for the less well-prepared students greater time to adjust. Earlier today I was talking with Cassie about the idea that as you sit around the table and think about your situation, I'd hazard a guess that this group of students will excel in any system we create. Because you're self-selected, you're self-starters, you're motivators, you're leaders. But I want you to think about the middle student, the median student at Eastern, and say what system would best serve them. And the argument here would be that, again, there's more time for the student to make that adjustment. It's 15 to 17 weeks rather than all of a sudden you're 5 weeks in and you're halfway through a quarter, or you'd be a third of the way through a semester. It's that notion of intensity that can work in a way that can be confounding for the less well-prepared student. At least that's the argument that some have argued. Superior for teaching and learning, I think that needs a caveat. The key there, at least in my former college, was around project-based learning in particular. And the notion, again, is you have 15 to 17 weeks to do projects. So imagine you're trying to have an outside group you're working with, where you are really working with a client. And just imagine your busy schedule and that person's busy schedule. So she's busy and you're busy. How do you get it scheduled? How do you make it happen? And so that's where project-based can be a real advantage. And then, again, this notion of interaction factor, you have more weeks to connect. That's the notion there. You have more time. So what happens if you transition on graduation rates? You've heard a lot about student success. I know you have students, and one of the ultimate goals is we want to see every student who comes in meet their aspirational goals, which is to graduate. And the evidence is mixed. It really is one where we had Vince Tinto here last week, and you had a chance to talk with him. And he would point out that what's equally important, or even more important, is what we do with our time. And that's why probably you see the evidence being mixed here. It's about strategies for student success. For example, we've done Learning Commons in the last year. We've done a lot of things under Dr. Arévalo's leadership that will positively impact graduation in either system, and that's what this slide really says. Over time, the trend is positive, but again, that is in some ways being picked up by universities like us, where we pay more attention to student success as well over time. This leading up to transition, graduation rates increase. What that really is students, when they're facing a change, they speed up their process so they don't get caught in any transition. So there's that idea that if I graduate a quarter earlier, I won't have to transition. So you see that effect in almost every university that's done. All right. Other effects. Here we go. We talked about this in reverse a moment ago, longer versus shorter class meetings. That gets again to what you're talking about, 5 credit courses in a quarter world and 3 semester hours. You get differences in time meetings that are design features. This is an important point probably, is that in a quarter world, you're dividing your total bill into thirds if you're a full-time student. In a semester world, you divide it in half, 2 terms. So the notion is that those chunks are different. That's where financial aid can be redesigned to address that, of course. But at least in theory, that's what you're doing. If you pay weekly rent versus monthly rent. And then you can focus on fewer courses at a time, and yet take more courses overall. And again, the calculation I use to give you a sense of that is the minimum amount of credits to degree with the quarter world in our system is 180. So let's assume that all of your courses are 5 credits. They're not, of course, but let's assume that for the moment. That would be 45 classes that you would take. In a semester world, the conversion would be 3 semester hours typically, although there are differences there. And in 120 hours, you had 40 courses. So that's where the more courses comment comes in. Typically, in a core world, you take more courses by the time you graduate. That's generally true. This is a big one from my perspective in terms of my role as a provost. We have an initiative to, in fact, we have guests on campus as we speak from China. There are delegations here from 8 universities in China wanting to partner with us. And they want not only to send their students here, which they do already, but guess what? They want you to go to China. They want you to visit China as part of your studies. So one of the advantages of Semester World is that most universities and international partners are aligned better generally with the semester calendar. They don't line up perfectly because each nation has a different start and finish date, but generally it lines up better. So again, it's one of those generally true, but not every possible example can be true. Textbooks, there's an argument that many principles textbooks, I'm an economist, so if you were to buy a principles econ book, it's oftentimes 15 to 17 chapters. And the idea is you cover a chapter a week, and that's the argument behind this notion that textbooks are designed for semesters. And given that 90+% of the market is in semesters, textbook publishers adapt to that big market, not the small market. And that's the notion there. We talked about this already, I think. So we go on. Related to faculty, we have the following issues. Fewer class preps in a given term. And again, teaching a variety of courses can be an advantage to faculty as well. They like teaching their specialties. So that's a piece of what's up there. In a semester world, you have 2 rather than 3 times per year. Advising takes place 1 time less. We're talking about cycle time. And the argument here is one that needs to be a design feature. We need to design this like a teaching relative neutral. I believe it can be. I've looked at enough of the data. I'm confident it could be. But it is a design feature. Cost. This is the range that Gary found for his committee back in 2010, a range of 0 to 14 million. So you might say, how is it ever 0? Right? The way it's 0 is you do it within people's time. You do it in load, so to speak. You say, we're just going to do it, and it's one of the things we do. So imagine my work week, right? I work whatever number of hours I do. And all of a sudden, what it says is, rather than working on what I did this week, I'd be working on quarters to semesters. And the cost is 0 because I'm being paid on a salary monthly anyway. That's the way they get the 0, just so you know. The 14 million ranges about how they design it. In many cases, they will pay project managers, they will do the conversions in IT to bring in help to assist. One of the big help items is extra advisors to contact every student, and we'll talk about that with our cost study in a minute. Most universities spend about 3 to 4 million. And we'll get into details here in a minute about what we estimate the cost to be. How long? 3 to 4 years. We modeled it exactly that way, and we'll get to that next set of information for you. And these are the things that you have to do. You have to revise the curriculum, and we're just converting the curriculum in terms of number of units. And while you're doing that, you might as well make sure that it's more current. So you do currency and timing adjustments, if you will. You have to make sure your technology systems work. So you all are familiar with the different systems like SOAR and all that. They all have to be synced to a semester world. Every system has to be revised, if you will. And you've got procedures and policies. So you'll have to talk about end of term policies now being twice a year rather than 3 times a year. Those kinds of things. And then this is a key. In every system, student advising is paramount. That is why some of the costs are in there, because you have to have a more intense advising system during transition. There's no doubt about that. Academic policies and procedures will need to be adjusted to revise all the language. So just imagine the catalog. Every place that says quarter needs to be adjusted to say semester, and you have to ask the question, does it change the effect of that policy? You have to look at that. We have the advice that's like that here. All right, other impacts. One of the big positives that we discovered was the timing of athletics with the semester work. Many of you know it's football season, among others, volleyball as well. Those sports start before we start our academic year in our quarter world. And so that means those athletes come here early, and there are extra costs associated with their housing, for example. If we were lined up in semester world, the argument is that could be built into the normal cost because they are student athletes. And so you can meld those 2 ideas together. We talked about their gut especially the SOAR and all this before. So that's really a summary of what I believe. Oh, here we go. This is what Dr. Pratt's committee found, looking at years over time, and you see this sort of decline here in terms of enrollment growth. That's being picked up by that rush of graduation, but you see in every case afterwards the university began to grow again. You got to look at this in terms of trend data, but this is what the data show pre and post. So conversion year, you get sort of this decline, speed up, and then you begin to get back on your normal growth path. So Dr. Ray, for example, has challenged us to grow by 2% per year. So one can imagine that we would see a bigger graduating class, which would cause this dip, and then we start growing 2% again. That's what this slide is picking up. Does that make sense? Okay. So here's some of the reviews the board did. The board first looked at this in January 2011. That was the my committee at the time, which was the Academic Affairs Committee. And they reviewed the task force reports and such, and meeting points that were emphasized with the board. So on that timeline that we skipped by very early on, it was slide number 2, or maybe the first real slide, if you will. There were points at which we touched base with the board. That's what's being picked up here in some detail. So questions raised then were, what about community colleges? We'll talk about that in a minute. What is the impact on cost? We'll talk about that in a minute. Board trustees review. Let's see. This was a motion that was passed back again at the Academic Affairs Committee, and then reaffirmed by the full board in January of 2011, which is to move forward. And we have. All right, the cost committee. One of the things the board asked is, what will it cost? So then Dr. Arévalo charged a new committee with the cost study, which you saw on that timeline. I was part of this committee as the vice president at the time, and the question was, what's it going to cost? So that's pretty straightforward. And the key assumptions were, we had to say, what are we doing? What are we changing to? So we said, let's go with the middle of the market, if you will. So we went to a 15 to 17 week semester. Most semesters, schools fit within that zone, with the idea of beginning in late August or early September. If you have friends at Washington State, you know that they began in late August this year. That's pretty typical for semester schools around the country. And they would end in May, usually around Mother's Day, give or take. Whereas we end around middle June, around Father's Day. So those are the assumptions. And we argued that the amount of tuition you will pay would be the same. So we modeled this so that if you were to go back to the slide about when you pay your tuition, you pay it in thirds now you pay it in halves. The argument is it's the same tuition. Right? So that's what we mean by revenue neutral. So that's what that was about. And then we modeled a 4-year plan. So we have 1 year for planning, 2 years for conversion, 1 year for implementation. That's how you get the 4 years. So you plan one, do intensive planning, then you actually launch the conversion, and then you actually launch implementation in the 4th year. So that's how we did the assumptions. So here's the numbers. And not surprisingly, because all the universities have the same pattern, most of the costs are in my unit called Academic Affairs. And the reason for that at our campus in particular is we decided that we would assume that we would pay faculty in the summer to convert the curriculum. So rather than doing it in load and having them teach fewer classes during the year, which would affect all of you, we said we will buy their time in the summer, which is an optional contract for faculty, and we will estimate the cost to do that. That's how I got that number. I also included in that a project manager to run the process, so I had somebody day in, day out running this, and additional advisors. Those are all built into that number. It's roughly $2 million a year to round off, 2.5 down to 2. And the vast majority of that is labor cost, people. The other cost, each vice president estimated those costs. I can pull out the report and give you detail on it. The next largest cost, not surprisingly, is an IT conversion. So you see that there's 7%. So between academic affairs and IT, you get about 84, 85% of the cost. Which again goes back to all the earlier slides. You got to change your operating systems and your technology, and you got to convert the curriculum. Curriculum being the big piece. Okay. These are estimates. These are best guesses, and your best guesses back in 2011. One of the key issues for faculty, I mentioned, is workload. This is what our contract says now, which is faculty normally teach 36 quarter hours, right here. And if you do that conversion strictly arithmetically to the semester world, that becomes 24 semester hours. So one of the issues we talk to faculty about is what does that look like? Because right now, when faculty take 36 and divide by 5, they say they're teaching 7 courses a year typically. The fear the faculty had, quite candidly, was if you divide 24 by a semester world of 3, would it be 8 courses or not? And that's a matter of discussion that's been debated and not resolved at this stage. But the other thing that's interesting here is when I look at the actual teaching load of faculty, one of the things I do as a provost is say, what are we actually doing? Our actual load is closer to 30 hours a quarter, or a year. And when you convert 30 back to a semester world, you get a number like 18 to 20. Now you get into a world where faculty would be teaching similar loads to what they're teaching now in a design feature. And my argument is it provides additional time for student success. It would be a key piece of that conversation. But this is yet to be determined. It's not settled. This is what the contract says because we live in a quarter world. All right, let's see. So we discussed this with the union prior to negotiating the new contract. And the principles we agreed to is we want flexibility, workload. We want this issue of number of courses to be addressed. We want them. So let me tell you why faculty care about this. When you think about the real work of faculty, it comes down to a number of things. Number of students you have in a given quarter, number of different courses you have in a given quarter, and number of new preparations, and then finally level of the course, undergraduate, graduate. I would put those, at least in my experience profile, as to what affects what is a real felt load. And those are issues we talked about with the union at that time. But I wanted to point this out. This is actually our strategic plan that the president led a few years ago. We've said that we have a 25-to-1 student-to-faculty ratio. Right now it's 23-to-1. And we're saying, we put in a cap on this, saying we don't want to get any bigger than that. So I believe that that's an important proviso, saying that as we convert, we're always going to have, on average, that number that allows for the interaction that you all have felt through your academic careers, and we're committed to maintaining it. There was a question about community colleges. The big question was, what about the community colleges? Are they in quarters? Where were they transfer? 2 points on that. They transfer now, and they also transfer to Washington State, which is semester. So when they start the fall, they go either to Washington State or Eastern in this region, for example. But we also said, well, wouldn't it be better if we were aligned with community colleges? And so that's what this discussion led to. And what we had out of those discussions, this bottom point here, is there was in CCS's community colleges in Spokane. I can decode that for you. What they said was, if Eastern converts, they would convert. So what they realized is we're the primary recipient of many of their transfer students. It would be better for them if they aligned with us as well. So they've been at least apprised of our discussions. They've had some discussions on their own. But like us, they're in this moment of, are we ready to make the transition or not? So decision making would be the status of it. I think I jumped to your slide, right? I think I took steps on you there.
That's all right.
Did I do it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to add anything I missed there?
No, I mean, I think that's the case. I mean, my discussions with the chancellor of the community colleges is that because we are their biggest receiver of their students, that they would look at changing their calendar if we decided to move. In fact, the other things that she told me was that she had also had discussions with a number of other community college presidents in the eastern part of the state, and a number of them, like Columbia Basin, Wenatchee, Walla Walla, would also be interested in moving to semesters if they moved and we moved. So, I mean, I think that if we moved, that probably would create some kind of domino effect, at least on the eastern part of the state. The other thing that I would say is that, much like Rex mentioned earlier, that 93, 95% of colleges and universities across the United States are on semester. Here in Spokane, we're the only university on a quarter, because Washington State, Gonzaga, and Wentworth are all on semesters, and they all begin and end about the same time. So, sort of the next steps, if you will, is really to get prepared at this point for the Board of Trustees meeting on November the 8th.
Yeah, this looks like we're still in an area here. This is a.
It's
not quite 2014.
It's change that one.
It's
13.
Right? So it's 2013. It's November 8th, so this is the slide that didn't get fixed.
Well, that's not going to be decided, right?
No, it's going to be a hearing on the 8th.
Hearing on the 8th, decision on December.
Oh, so it's not the decision on November 8th?
No, it's now been pushed to December the 3rd.
Which is a Tuesday, which is unusual in terms of the pattern.
And so we, like yourselves and the Academic Senate, are in the process of putting together a white paper that addresses the questions that the Board of Trustees asked us to look at in a letter that they sent back in
July.
And
He
so,
has the date.
and so,
Someone's organized.
so that's basically what we're trying to do right now.
This is what the board asked each of the groups, including DJ as the president of the student body, to address.
Do you have any questions about any of this data? But this is just basically a synopsis of what's in that quarters to semesters website page.
I will encourage all the ASEWU council members to be taking notes, and if you have any questions at the end, we'll have sometimes you can ask questions to them.
Council members, you will all note that you should have on your calendar a request to attend the meeting at November 8th. That will be an open forum where we will be participating, and then I believe the Board of Trustees is going to determine this on their relocated meeting date to December 2nd. Isn't that correct?
December 3rd.
December 3rd. All right, so are you guys open for questions now?
Sure.
Huh? Do you guys have any questions, council members?
Yeah.
Right.
So my name is Ryan McCullough. I'm Student Services Representative here on ASEWU. I actually have kind of a two-part question, I guess you can say. And for the first part, if people are, for semesters, there to take more classes, and if it is to maybe drop down the credits per class, does that mean that they will actually have more classes that they have to go through to graduate, or how will that affect their graduation?
Well, my assumption would be is that in essence, if you're still here, you probably wouldn't be around because it's going to take us 4 years to do the conversion. But that's true. But let's say you're caught in the middle. You know, you did 2 years here, and all of a sudden now you're on a semester. The chances are is that you probably take less classes to graduate, because now instead of having to meet a 180 graduation requirement, you're now to 120.
Okay.
And the courses that you took during the quarter calendar would be translated into semester.
So none of them would be dropped? Because I know when some students transfer from college, not all the credits transfer, so all of them would transfer. Yeah. Okay, awesome, wow. And then also, another question I have is, if it is turned down come December, will it be continue to be pursued, or is that just going to be dropped at discussion further?
I'm done.
Done? All right, great.
Mr. Chair, I have a suggestion.
Go ahead.
Dr. Smith is here from the faculty organization. How about the council hears what she has to say, and that way then the council can ask questions of either Dr. Arévalo, Dr. Fuller, or Dr. Smith, depending on where their questions may come from.
Does anybody have any opinion, comments on that? Is there any objections to move ahead with the next presentation?
Yeah.
All right, so Julie Smith, Dr. Julie Smith.
I'm going to be a little more informal, partly because I think that my job right now is to be a resource for you guys.
One of the things that I realized that I hadn't put together with the materials that you guys had passed along because I didn't include it in the summary for the board is just a brief walkthrough on what the typical semester experience and the typical quarter experience looks like. This is nothing you two, I'm sure, don't know, but here are a couple of extras for folks. So basically, what I wanted to do was just walk you quickly through the typical semester experience and how it compares to a quarter experience, because I suspect many of you have not attended a school on the semester system. So the typical semester class is a 3-credit class. Now notice it meets for 15 weeks instead of for 10 weeks. So we're talking about, now I'm going to call things hours that we really need 50-minute periods for, right? So 45 hours of coursework. That's normally distributed either in a course that meets 3 days a week for 50 minutes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or for 2 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, for 75 minutes. Both of those add up to the 150 minutes a week. What that means is that across the course of a semester, you'll meet a class then either 45 times or 30 times for a sum total of about 2,200 minutes, just to put it in real numbers. In a quarter system, or at least in our quarter system, one of the confusions about some of these points that they mentioned come down to the fact that there are multiple systems in which quarters are taught. Sometimes people teach quarters with 3-credit courses. Under those circumstances, for example, textbooks are really shorted because, of course, the number of hours isn't the same, right? It's 2/3 of the number. In our system, we actually have more instructional hours because each one of our classes meets either 5 times a week for 50 minutes each for 10 weeks. In other words, 50 hours. In other words, 2,500 minutes. So, however they're organized. So essentially, that's because three semester hours essentially translates to 4.5 quarter hours. And you either have to choose to round down to 4 or round up to 5. So, essentially what that means is the average student will go from taking 3 5-credit classes, ignoring the fact that some of you are actually taking kind of different loads, and I know that, to 5 3-credit classes. So what that means is that at any given moment in time, we're managing about 60% more classes. Right? You have more time to do that, about 50% more time. But you'll be managing more classes at a time. And that's sort of the way out when you think about how these things work instructionally. You have more time in the sense of more weeks, but less time in the sense of less actual classroom contact time. And you're juggling more different things at a time. Which one's better? That depends. So, before I move on that clear to everybody, I just want to make sure everybody sort of gets that, because I know that when I found myself talking even to some of my students, and we started talking about systems, people were having trouble sort of picturing what that semester system looks like. So, more time, fewer times, and more things you're paying attention to at a time. And of course, the opposite is true on the faculty side. There will be more things that a faculty member is paying attention to at a time. There will be more students in each section. They'll have more time to pay attention to those students, so that I'll have each group of students for 15 or 16 weeks, or 17, I suppose, instead of 11. But if my workload's going to stay the same, then I'm going to have 50% essentially more students in each semester, because I got to take this middle group of students and sort them out between the other 2 quarters. So more time, but more people to pay attention to, more papers to grade, more everything to do, right? So some positives, some negatives in terms of how it's laid out. In terms of educational outcomes, it's remarkably hard to find any studies about educational outcomes in quarters and semesters. Kind of mind-bogglingly so. Every so often the only thing that I can conclude, and I'm sure that you guys would not necessarily agree, is that they can't find anything. Because surely if they could find something, they'd have published it. But in the meantime, what we got? So what do we have? We have a group of studies that look at compressed schedules of various sorts. A lot of these are 8-week schedules, essentially creating 2 mini semesters within a semester. We're looking at summer terms. And what they say is learning is as good. Some studies actually say better in those compressed formats than it is in semesters. Similarly, we can look at graduation rates. And this is kind of unfair. It wasn't included in the report that was put together in 2010 because this data is far more recent. In December of 2012, Cal Poly, as part of a study of this, actually looked at IPEDS data for IPEDS is one of those organizations that keeps up with information across institutions. It's what we use to compare ourselves to everybody for everything. And what they found is that graduation rates, 4-year graduation rates, 5-year graduation rates, 6-year graduation rates, the 3 years we look at, were higher under quarter systems than they were under semester systems. Now, the differences are statistically significant. There is a 22.8% chance that is due to chance. But in fact, the newest, best study we got says graduation rates are higher on quarters than they are on semesters. They also, of course, say that other things make graduation rates higher, lower student-faculty ratios, that is fewer students per faculty person, because that gives us more attention and the like. But in fact, that's what we got right now. I would be glad. I think that it's probably not the most useful thing for me to do, for me to recite for you what the faculty's done about quarters to semesters. To make it really brief, the faculty's voted, the Senate, our faculty Senate, which I think you all know, but just in case you don't, has representation from every department on campus. Every department or every group of departments sends a senator so that we have a cross-section of folks. And they voted in 2010, and in 2011, and in 2013, every single time saying, don't do it. We surveyed the faculty in 2011, directly using SurveyMonkey. We surveyed the faculty indirectly, asking the senators to poll each department. And in each case, once again, the faculty said as a group, don't do it. I'm glad to share with anyone the details. They're actually in the mailing that you guys should have gotten. That was the thing that we presented to the board as a handout in September. The last thing that I just want to observe, because it amuses me, I'm sure that you guys saw the Chronicle this morning. And there were a group of articles this morning in the Chronicle, one of which is called Academic Calendars Enter a Season of Change, which is largely a celebration of compressed formats. A celebration of quarters. Quarter system makes time for study abroad. Someone from the University of Chicago talking about how good quarters are. Another one thing at a time, please, focusing on block scheduling, which is an even more compressed system in which for 6 weeks at a time or so you focus on one class, and then another, and then another, and then another. But more broadly than this broad treatment. I'd encourage you guys to take a look at it, because it's got some really interesting stuff about different kinds of teaching formats. So what I'd like to do now then is open it up for questions. If there are specific things you would like to know more about, that you would like to ask any of us about, I'm sure that we would be glad to answer them. Because I think our job here is to be a resource for you.
What I would indicate, since she mentioned those articles, is that those articles are institutions that are not like Eastern. They're highly selective with an upper strata of students that attend them. And so there's a reason why they do it.
If any of the council representatives or members has any questions, please raise your hand, and you may either ask Julia Smith, the president of the Faculty Senate, or Dr. Rex Fuller or Dr. Arévalo. What you were referring to, Dr. Arévalo, was universities like Stanford and other universities.
Well, University of Chicago.
Okay.
Just like University of Washington. Colorado Springs is an institution of 3,000 students, highly selective, very unique, mostly out-of-state students that go to that institution.
One of the things I would say is that whenever you look at these differences, you have a number of different factors you need to consider. One is comparable institutions, which is what the President's addressing right now. The other is that many of these comparisons depend upon the design features that you decide to include. So, for example, I've been at an institution that was on semesters where we developed both a January term and a May term. And during January term, because there was a break between the Christmas holiday and the start of spring semester, about 4 weeks usually, many students could do a number of things, including study abroad. So this gets back to why this thing is so complex. because there's a whole bunch of design features that haven't been scoped out, given our mission and our purpose, that will affect the actual implementation, which is why we're kind of looking at the blueprint, but we really don't have the blueprint fully designed. So I want to go back also to the point of how many courses you take. Another way for you to think about it is, if you're going to make satisfactory academic progress and graduate in 4 years, you're going to average 45 quarter units per academic year and not go to summer. Okay? In the semester world, your average is 30 semester hours. So if you take the realm of semesters, the typical social science course and many other courses are 3 semester hours. So that's 10 courses a year. But if you mix in there 4 credit courses, which typically are science and math, if it's all 4 credit courses, it's 7.5 courses, right? So the range is 7 to 10. In your current world, we also have 4 credit courses in some of the colleges, College of Business, Public Administration being one of them. So if you take 45 divided by 5, you get 9 courses. If you take 45 divided by 4, you get 11. So the range is 9 to 11. Now, that's not perfect either, right? But that gives you a sense of the range. So 9 to 11, 7 to 10. To give you some sense of courses per academic year. Now, at any given moment, your load is different because you're taking as few as 3 or as many as 5. So that's a way to see it from your perspective. Keep in mind that amount of time is the point that is moving here, whether it's 10 weeks or 15 weeks. So it's complex. I want you to know that. It's complex from every perspective, whether it's your perspective as a student or administratively my perspective as provost or as a perspective of a faculty member engaging the change itself. So I wanted to maybe say that because I think it might summarize some of the points where you may be hearing disagreement. It's disagreement about assumptions rather than necessarily principle.
Dr. Gilles, do you have any last comments before we ask any questions from the council?
No, I don't think I do, though I would really encourage you guys to take a look at these articles. I'd be glad to give you guys the URLs for them. As I said, they appeared this morning, so that's one of the reasons they wouldn't have been incorporated in a presentation that you guys put together earlier this week at any rate. And I have not really had a chance to completely digest them, but they're certainly really interesting and suggestive and address a wide variety of institutions and institutional experiences. So I would encourage you to think about it, to look at them.
With that being said, I think we should move on to questions. I know we have Brendan who has his hand up. Go ahead.
Brendan Hargrave, Student Health and Safety Services. Now, I just came up with this on the run when we were talking, so it's not too well thought out. But you were talking about how the community colleges in the surrounding areas would switch to semesters along with us, hopefully, right? Now, if they did, do you think that would actually open them up to going to WSU, Gonzaga, and Woodward as well? And those transfer students?
Well, they currently go already.
Don't you think
they transferred, community college students transferred in any of those 3 institutions already. We just happen to get the majority of these.
Well, I know I transferred from community college mainly because my credits aligned was so perfectly, it's easier. And don't you think that, we wouldn't have a monopoly, but don't you think we have a large advantage over other schools because, especially in this region, because we are the only school that is on the borders? And do you think that's a great affect our enrollment rates since
I think one of the advantages we have is that historical relationship, and we've also created, since you went to one of the community colleges here, a Destination Eastern program, which admits students to both institutions simultaneously. So if we converted, they converted, we would simply flip that Destination Eastern program to a semester conversion, and our hope would be that we would still maintain the same share of the transfer market. So again, that gets at this design implementation. Another point is that for the fall term, there isn't a great deal of difference in terms of the transfer students starting, whether they start August 25th with Washington State or September 25th with us. It's simply a matter of when you start the next term. It's only during the year that you get out of sync and you're going to transfer mid-year. So at least in terms of the fall, there isn't a great deal of difference. And that's why, as Dr. A said, they're transferring now to Whitworth, Gonzaga, and Washington State, or Eastern. They're picking their best choice, oftentimes by academic program as much as anything else, in my view.
All right. Thank you, Brendan, for asking that question. Does anybody else have any questions? Let's go James and then Samuel.
Okay. So I have 2. I know you talked about it last year on your slides last year, but could you tell for everybody else how much money you have set aside for the project? I know you set aside some funds.
Well, right now, what we do, and ask me after I say it because it does get complicated. In the normal course of business, every year the university has about $2 million that we don't spend. And that's because staff leave, we don't hire everybody right away, and so there's salary savings. Somebody plans to do a project, they end up not doing the project, the money's still in their budget. So at the end of the year, when we find all the nooks and crannies, we find that we've got about $2 million that aren't spent. And so what we normally do is that money that's left over, we sort of give it back to the departments and say, okay, you didn't use it, but you can have it. You can have a portion of it back, and the rest of it we'll take and redistribute. What we would do is simply say, for each of those years that we're implementing a change, we would just simply collect that money and use the money for the payment of either faculty or hiring additional advisors.
Okay, and then
so it's not new money; it's existing money.
Thank you. So my next question refers to slide 12 from Rex Fuller. If we don't switch to semesters, would we still be able to do some sort of curriculum update, like you mentioned? Because that's one of the appealing factors that I really like about the semesters is we get to go through and update the curriculums. But could we still do that if we don't switch to semesters? Could we, implement some sort of university update?
If Joey's going to add to it, so a couple of updates. We have, through the Student Success and Retention Committee, which was a joint effort between the faculty organization and the administration, we developed a task force on general education reform. And I think they maybe present to you already or plan to present to you as well. I know that they are looking for some open forums. The first one is next week. So general education reform is underway regardless, and we are doing that because we believe there's an opportunity for us to take a look at general education and make appropriate changes with regard to updating the curriculum. So, in absolute sense, you can do curriculum revision on an ongoing basis in any system you should. In our case, Gen Ed hasn't been reviewed in a number of years, so it is timely that we do that. And it's our intention to move forward with that project on the original schedule we identified. So I don't think it's conversion is necessarily a stimulus unto itself. It really gets to a point where it's around faculty culture and the desire to maintain currency and do revisions on an ongoing basis. That's where outside accreditations come into play for some of the professional programs, because they're saying, are you keeping up with the standards? And the vast majority of our programs do keep up. I want you to know that. It's just that we haven't had the debate around general education because it can be a divisive discussion if you get into certain quarters. And we've designed it, I think the Student Success Committee, in a way which we think is going to lead to the right discussion, which is around student learning principles, and then build the program from those kinds of principles up. Those would be my responses.
Yes, so I think that the students received either early this week or late last week. I think early this week. Is that not right? A message about the first general education discussion. You're staring at me blankly. Okay, good. I was CC'd on it, so I think you got it. So the first discussion is, just to remind you, October 10th in the JFK Auditorium, 3 o'clock. Come, make noise, say you care about this stuff, because we care about this stuff.
3 p.m.?
3 p.m. 3 p.m. Thursday 10th, 3 p.m. The next one's on the 24th. That one's at River Point.
Okay.
Another announcement what about that, and then we're going to have one on November 15th again in JFK from 3 to 5. The other one is at 3 to 5 too. It's just at River Point. As I said, you guys should have had a message sent out on 9/2 of the 2nd.
Yeah.
So, but make sure we please send out reminders to people, because it's really important that students be involved in this discussion too. Honestly, I regularly say, general education system is older than many of you. When I say it to faculty, I say it can drink. Really, it's about 21 years old. So it's high time we really seriously rethought how we're doing it, especially since we know a lot more about best practices. I want to observe really quickly, though, that one of the things that's remarkably striking to me, again, lots of schools have done this transition. Theoretically, they've all revamped their curriculum. And we had nothing to show for it. So I'm not sure why, no, seriously, I'm not sure why that is. It's one of the things that weirds me out. I don't know whether it's because faculty have gotten so overwhelmed with the simple business of transforming their existing courses and curriculum that they sort of lose track of the opportunity to rethink what they're doing. I don't know whether rethinking it doesn't help that much. I don't know. But I mean, seriously, one of the things that's very striking is with the number of schools that have made a transition from quarters to semesters or semesters to quarters, we ought to have some big, splashy, redoing all your curriculum at the same time makes a big difference. And we don't. And
Thank
it's
you for
weird.
the comments. Samuel, you had a question, right?
Yeah, my name is Samuel Adams. I'm the Director of Elections for ASEWU.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of made a point and an effort this quarter to talk to as many students as I can and ask them whether they prefer quarters or semesters. And every student that I've talked to so far has said that they prefer quarters. But I've also tried to ask every student whether they've had experience with semesters before. And I believe only 2 of the however many I've talked to have actually had semester experience before. So my question is for both parties here, what sort of things would you encourage students to consider in a possible transition from quarters to semesters? And consider with their decision whether or not to switch.
Some background on that, I'm sorry, is that we are going to be pulling the student populace, as I'm sure you're aware. So this is something we want to make sure that we educate the student populace as best we can. So.
Well, I mean, I think some of them were in the sort of pro and con that we found why other institutions changed. And it has to do with does it allow, would you like to have more time to be able to be successful in a course? Because I mean, in every study I think that we looked at, there was a question as to that related to how much time do I have to actually be successful in a course. And so a number of faculty here have said that if a student fails a course on a quarter system, they can quickly take another course, to retake the course again. My attitude is, I don't want them to fail the course the first time. I want them to be successful. So if a semester allows them to understand that they're not doing well, and then do something about changing the fact that they may not be successful, and then end up being successful in the course, I'd rather have them be successful the first time, rather than say, well, in a quarter, if you fail it, you can take it right away. Well, so what? I still failed the course. And so, I mean, those are the kinds of sort of juxtapositions that I think students should know. I mean, I think you need to ask them, do you think the quarter system that you're experiencing now doesn't allow you to really reflect on what you're studying? Because you go to class every day. I mean, I don't know how many students really have time to read as much as they probably should about a topic and be prepared. So are you sort of studying for a test, or are you studying to get depth in the subject? And I think semesters give you more depth opportunity than a quarter.
Any other questions?
Yeah, let me quickly answer this question, and then I'll be glad to. I would encourage you to develop your own version of the information that I just handed out. The very straightforward. This is what courses in a semester system usually look like. You might add the information that often things like languages are taught as 5-credit courses that meet 5 days a week. Specifically, first and second year language courses are pretty typically taught that way. But to give students a sense of what, if they've never taken courses under a semester system, to get a sense of normal 3-credit distribution of classes is, meeting Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 15 minutes, or meeting Tuesday, Thursday for an hour, 15 per thing. So they can picture what the experience of those kinds of courses is like. Because it is kind of different structurally than what we do here, where we teach 5-credit courses regularly. And I would certainly encourage them to think about things like whether that gives time for more reflection, though I would be very cautious about how I presented it, given that the studies that exist say learning is just as good in compressed formats. They say students do just as well in the next course in the sequence. So it's easy to say that students ought to have more time to reflect, but if the data don't actually say that that happens, then something else is going on. And whether that's
like Julia said, I mean, because we thought when Gary did the study that we would find research that would, and you have I think we looked at, it was at least 15 universities in the course of the last 10 years that have converted. And I don't think anybody had done a study as to whether it was good, bad, or indifferent.
It is the weirdest.
Now we realize.
It is. It's the weirdest thing ever, isn't it?
Quick question.
Seriously.
Can you mention the regions of the universities that they were from? Were they east side, west side, central, U.S.?
They're listed in the reports that are on the website.
So, Ryan McCullough had a question. I would also like to remind all the audience members that this is an open meeting. It's a work session, so you're welcome to ask questions if you would like as well. Raise your hand. Go ahead, Ryan.
So, Dr. Arévalo, this one's for you. Earlier you were talking about a majority of the money will be coming from the leftover or excess money at the end of the year. And I know, like you were saying, they go to different departments. So, for example, we've had a lot of the Patterson building, we've had the new dormitories. I've heard about future endeavors such as the rebuilding possibly getting redone, and then like the pub remodel. If we were to do the transition, would that at all affect or maybe stall those future plans, or would they still go forward as planned?
It would absolutely not affect, for example, the pub remodel, because those are funds that we would generate from another source. Because it's from existing dollars that are left over. For example, because it looks like we're going to grow, for example, this semester, that means we'll generate more money that I didn't budget. Those monies that I didn't budget we'll use next year to maybe do something special. Start a new degree program, hire a few more faculty. It doesn't affect what we do with new money because it's existing dollars.
Sam? Samantha Frank and then Samuel Adams.
Hi, I'm Samantha. I'm a graduate affairs representative. I apologize for being late, but I have a question based on the graduate program. I can see how it is for undergraduates in the classes laid out. As a graduate, my classes are blocked already. So my question is, what would that look like for graduate students, and then would that affect the ratio of student to faculty as well?
We had a slide in there, the presentation that you may have missed around student faculty ratios. And then, which program are you in, may I ask? Is it the social work program?
It's mental health counseling.
Block scheduling occurs in both systems. And so, again, I think in my experience in 3 different states, managing graduate programs in colleges of business, you can create, again, through design features, either modules or blocks within a quarter or semester world. Because all that does is set sort of a start and finish time for any one term. Within that, you can create a design feature that you like. So if the faculty were to say they still want the block scheduling feature, I have every confidence that it could be designed within a semester world. So to give you an example of the MBA world that I actually know about, because I managed it in another state, we had modular approaches to the MBA program and ran 2 terms per semester. So to the point that Julia's talked about with her handout, they were modules within a semester rather than the full semester. Those are all choices that faculty can decide. based upon what they think learning outcomes will be in terms of maximizing the benefit to students.
The interesting thing, a lot of graduate programs, for example, only meet once a week. So if you're taking a 4-hour graduate course, you meet for 4 hours, or should be meeting for 4 hours during that night or afternoon. If you were on a semester, it would be 3 hours.
And you think that's beneficial?
Well, sure. Because, I mean, you lose students after the first hour and 15 minutes, quite frankly.
The downside of that is you the whole evening, just to make it really clear. So if you're going for 3 hours a night instead of 4, that means instead of going 3 nights, you go 4. Yeah. Just to make it clear, right? Because you got to make if you're only doing so many hours a night, you'll have to make it up by doing other nights because you still need to fulfill the same number of credit hours.
Again, I would argue it's a design feature.
That's right.
I have had semester courses in the evening MBA programs that meet once a week. They meet for whatever block of time is necessary. I've had MBA programs that decided to meet twice a week for the same number of credits because they've done what Dr. Arévalo talked about. They decided that meeting an hour and a half or an hour and 15 twice a week is more beneficial. So the point I would say is that's a matter of design.
And then would that affect our professors' workloads the same as?
Well, in the end, the professor, it's not to affect how they spend their time during the week, but the total number of credits they're teaching is still 3 credits in the semester role and 5 units in quarter work. So it can affect their productivity because it creates more teaching days perhaps by design or not. But again, those are design features.
So I don't. Does anybody? Sam. All right.
So this might seem like kind of a silly question, but I assure you that it's one that would really affect my decision personally as a student. And I can't speak for every major, but I can certainly speak for my cohorts in the science department. And one of our biggest running jokes is the myth of a dead week. Because I feel like I have tests in all of my classes the week before finals, and then my only time to study for finals is the weekend before finals and during finals week, which means all kinds of all-nighters and things, and it's very hard to take a 2-hour biochemistry final on notes. And, so is, in a semester system, is it true that the week before finals is traditionally dead with no tests and is a time to study, whereas could this implicate that we have to study for twice as many finals in the same amount of time?
Well, usually, I mean, the ones that I've been at, is you in fact have a dead week. You have a whole week to study before exams start. And that's why sometimes you have a 16-week semester because it's like 15 weeks of teaching, 1 week of dead week for studying, and then the exam. So, yeah.
The other thing is that in a semester role, as Julia pointed out, you'll be taking final exams for 5 courses, which is why universities where I've been associated with the semester role also have policy to say the student will take no more than 2 exams on a given day. And there are alternatives for rescheduling. But every university I've been at in the semester will include at least some dead time. Sometimes it's less than a week, sometimes it's a full week. Again, it gets back to the point I've made over and over again, which is being redundant, which is design it the way you want.
That's right. Wow, I like what you guys have. I've been at an undergraduate institution, a graduate institution. I taught as an adjunct at an institution while I was in graduate school, and none of them had a true dead week. That is to say, at most of the schools that I went to, people didn't give tests during the last week of the quarter, but that's when all your term papers were due. And so what I was doing on the Friday that was the last day of classes was I was turning in term papers, and then I spent the weekend studying for the finals, and I took the finals. Right? So it's a design question. One can invent a system in which there is a true dead week. One can invent a system in which there's essentially a half a dead week, but it really does come down to how we design it. Adding in a dead week puts the start date of the quarter of the semester 1 week earlier, or moves it 1 week later in the year. But that's one of the ways you get 17-week patterns is through the addition of a true dead week and when people prep for studying, by studying for exams, I should say. So it is a good question. It's not a silly question at all.
There was some questions here on the side of the council. Raise your hand. So we'll go with the and then we go ahead with.
All right, so my question is, I think one of the biggest reasons why students come to Eastern is because it's actually one of the most affordable universities in Washington in general. And going back to slide 10 with some key assumptions is, in addition, we have assumed that the conversion will be revenue neutral. That is, it will have no longer-term effect, which is, in my case, is just actually based on assumptions. So which means it could actually cost a lot more than what it is right now. So will this pretty much, will this university say affordable, or will it go up within, or just going on assumptions? That's my question.
Well, no, it's not an assumption. I mean, the fact of the matter is tuition is tuition. And we determine tuition on an annual basis. So whether I carve it out in 3 slices or 2 slices, in the end, it's still $7,200.
Okay, thank you.
Kelsey?
So, my name is Kelsey Kelly. I'm the Legislative Affairs Representative on the ASEWU. And last night I did browse the 51-page quarter or semester report. I'm serious. I went through the whole thing because I actually am very passionate about this issue. I went to a semester school, so I know how it is. And then I came to Eastern, and I try not to be biased on this issue because, like Samuel, I've actually pulled kind of personal polls, just kind of talk to people about the issue. So I try not to be biased. But I have one comment and then I have a question. So the first comment just kind of came to me when you were going through your research, and I really appreciate everything that you guys have put together, it's on slide 7, and it talks about underprepared students and the greater time to adjust to rigors of university life. Speaking as a person who's gone to a university with 2 semesters, whether you have, let's say you're unprepared for the 10 weeks, well, you can still be unprepared for the 15 to 17 weeks. I know students that are like that, so whether it's 10 to 15 or 17 weeks, if you're unprepared, you're unprepared. It doesn't matter how much time. But let's just kind of how I feel about it, because there's a lot of things I could talk about, so it really is. I made lots of notes. But the one question I have is when I talk to students about if the switch does not happen, where would the funds go that have been kind of not procured but saved for this? Where would that be distributed?
It would be distributed back to the departments that generate it.
Maybe going along with that,
for example, let's say sociology had a couple of faculty that left. It took them longer to hire the faculty. They hired part-timers. They had $50,000 left. If we changed what I would do, I would say, thank you very much for saving the $50,000. I'm going to use it to do the conversion. I'm going to probably end up paying faculty to do it anyway, but I'm taking those dollars. If we don't convert, then I simply say, you do the money with whatever you were going to do with it.
I just thought of another question. I apologize. But you had made a comment about if we were to switch to a semester basis, the CCS as well as other community colleges would switch as well. Just thinking, I know it's not related to Eastern, but it is related to the community colleges. That's also a transition that they would have to go through, including funds and affecting their students. And so I think it's kind of just thinking about the broader picture. It wouldn't just affect Eastern, it would affect, like you said, it's kind of like that ripple effect. So I just think about that in the terms of how our decision can not only affect us, but it will affect many other schools. So I'm not sure there's a question there. It just kind of was a concern of mine when the presentation was
our discussions with the Spokane Community College, they estimate that their cost would be less, and you can understand that because they're looking at 2 years of curriculum as opposed to us looking at 4 years of curriculum design. And so their expense would be less.
Is there any other questions? Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is for both sides of the issue. Do you intend to endorse quarters or semesters, depending on which side of the argument you fall? Do you intend to endorse that to the Board of Trustees, or will you adopt the majority of student opinion when it comes to that time?
My intent is not to give the board an opinion. My intent is to give them data because it's their decision, not my decision.
While I think that the faculty would acknowledge the student opinion as an important one, the fact is that the faculty have expressed a strong opinion to this and to the board over the course of 3 years now. So, to be honest, whatever I said to the board tomorrow, they would in fact take it in terms of the things that we've already said. While I think that we all do well when we are all involved in conversation, the fact is that the faculty also have a set of interests that are not always exactly the same as the interests of the students. Sometimes, and I'm not trying to complain about any of you, sometimes faculty take, for example, a longer perspective on things. Our attachment to this university is likely to be 30 years and more, whereas I hope yours isn't going to be 30 years, right? Right. We want you to be here. We want you to be here. We want you to go on and do great things. And occasionally you'll come back in a different perspective. But so we do want to make sure that the board sees those various perspectives. So while we would certainly endorse the student perspective, no, I would say that the faculty have their own perspective and their own set of concerns. And as I said, the faculty have over 3 years consistently voted over and over to say that they believe this is not the right change for this university, and this is not the right change for the university to make at this time.
Thank you, Nick. I want to encourage our members that haven't had the chance to ask any questions, so I really encourage you to ask questions. Go ahead, Kendall, and then you can go back, Kelsey. Unless there is someone else that wants to ask a question and haven't had the chance to ask a question. So go ahead, Kendall.
Hi, I'm Kendall Davis. I'm Student Activities Representative here. And then this is kind of referring to what you, Dr. Smith, was saying about those articles that came out this morning. Mm-hmm. It was, just so I kind of have the information right, it was like kind of the more selective schools.
It was actually a serious mix. So there is an article about the University of Chicago. The University of Chicago is interesting precisely because it was the originator of the quarter system. It was the designer of the quarter system back in the latter part of the 19th century. But actually, the broader article talks about a mix from the University of Chicago to Rio Salado College, which is a community college, to Montana Western, which is a smaller school but roughly equivalent in selectivity to ours, Montclair State, a little more selective than we are, Ohio State and the like. So it's a pretty mixed bag. So I would encourage you to take a look at the data yourself. As I said, I have not had a chance to completely digest this because this morning.
Yeah.
But
okay, so then going kind of along with that, just kind of talking out loud, would it maybe be possible to see, like in the future, schools going from semesters back to quarters if maybe some of those higher ranked schools are on quarters and they like it so much?
I would observe that actually, if you take, much as I hate to say this, I'm going to be so embarrassed now, the for-profit online sector is adopting quarters in large numbers. And while I don't want to compare us to the for-profit online sector, which is why it embarrasses me to say this, in fact, many of them are adopting quarters and sometimes even shorter, these 8-week blocks, these half-semester blocks that they're talking about as forms, because for part-time students or for students who have complicated lives, you all know some students like that, we have students like that, students who have family and work and all kinds of things, the ability to drop in and drop out to take some courses, and then when your life gets complicated, or in some cases when fire season starts, for whatever reason, they can then take, for example, spring quarter off, then come back in the fall without as much disruption, is the idea. That's one of the points of these shorter kinds of terms, is for people with really complicated lives, it's easier to take a little time off, take some courses. So it's something that's really, really attractive to part-time students.
Let me just give you a perspective. 95% of universities in the United States are on semesters. The last group of universities that are on quarters are in Washington and in California and Oregon. California, the remaining colleges in California in the state university system are going to semester. And they started last week. And they will complete that process in about 2.5 weeks. So I have not heard of any college in the last 10 years that has gone from from semesters to quarters.
Dr. Fuller, you want to comment?
Dr. Ray answers well.
Okay. So we have two questions. Did you raise it?
I would observe really quickly. You're talking about the CSU systems going over. There are still UC systems that are on quarters and have no intention of changing. Yeah. So.
I saw some hands in the back in the audience. Is there anybody? Okay, let's go Edie, and then you can go ahead, Ryan. Edie, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to make a quick comment.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so you're saying that there is quite a possibility that Eastern could be one of, if not the last colleges in the United States to be on the quarter system?
Maybe you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that we've really gotten a great kind of expository overview of both course semesters, from both sides. And I'm sure, just by their presence here, both faculty organization and the administration has shown that they really value what ASEWU has to ask and has to offer. So I know you all are going to be open for any questions that the council may wish to come to you with in the future after we've perused all the material that we've got here and come back. We've got that November 8th thing. So I'm wondering if the chair might entertain a motion to recess for some food for just a few minutes. Let these great folks get back to work, and we can continue our business.
Any council members like to? So I entertain the motion to take a recess for 5 minutes. Would any of the members like to do that?
So moved.
Of Eastern Washington University Council meeting. We have talked about the Association of Computer Machinery presentation and providing them with requested funds that they had asked for. A competition that they have, a regional competition that they have hosted here at Eastern Washington University for many years. They provided with some photos, so if you take a look at those are photos of the competition that actually took place here at Eastern. If you Cassie wouldn't mind handing out some items, so they also provided to us so that we can have an idea of some of the stuff they actually have put together, t-shirts, frisbees, and little hats. They provide that kind of stuff when we have the competition. So according to the statement that was provided with their advisor, Sue Steiner, this competition is hosted here at Eastern Washington University. It's a competition in which students connect to many universities from across the nation, including Stanford, Simon Fisher, and other universities from the nation. And Eastern, actually, about 4 years ago, I think they pretty much were pretty close up there with Stanford University and UC Berkeley and other universities. I think there's a high value to this conference, to this event that these young gentlemen are hosting and young women. And I think I would like to have the council consider what they have presented previously to us, providing a request of $1,500 funds so they can host a competition here at Eastern Washington University where close to 100 students, I'm guessing, gather in the labs and connect virtually to have a coding competition across the nation. If there is any questions or any comments that anybody would like to make?
Just clarify the price.
I thought it was 1,800.
Yeah, I recall it was 1,800.
Is that correct, Grace?
Yes, sir.
You guys are free to speak.
Yes, it was originally 1,800.
Okay, so does anybody recall the exact number?
They just said it was
1,800.
Okay, so they had a sort of request of $1,800. We cannot take any official business in here. We cannot make a final decision, but I would like to just simply have your engagement and discussion on this matter. Go ahead, Nick.
This is something that I believe has been done in the past, as said before, but would it be possible to maybe get a layout price breakdown proposal Sampson, and so that we can look it over and maybe email it to us.
Well, we have one prepared, but unfortunately we did not have access to a printer immediately before this meeting. The total price for the competition, including everything we came up with, was about $2,600 to $2,800, and ASEWU was planning on providing about $1,000 on top of the money we're requesting to fund it.
Okay.
Sorry, Jared, did you say you had a line-by-line breakdown? You just didn't,
Yeah, I do
apologize. You can print it out if you want.
Do we have it with us? No.
If we could
I can.
So if they would like to email it to me, and I'll distribute it to all the council members, that will work as well. Go ahead, Ryan.
So for the $1,800, how many students roughly will it actually go towards affecting?
90 is the total head
90?
count. So it's about $20 a student.
Okay. And that's for like food and all that kind of stuff?
Food, T-shirts, staff on hand to manage it. There's quite a few things.
Lunch for guests.
Lunch for guests.
The chair recognizes Brandon.
Do you plan on winning?
We have if everything works as we plan, we'll have the strongest team we've had in several years representing us, but that's all I can say.
We're not rigging it.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions?
Great.
James, go ahead.
I went and did some background digging just because I know Stu, and there wasn't a budget request last year, so they fundraised $1,423, which is a good substantial amount. They normally average $1,000 to $1,500 a year for fundraising, which is a good. I really appreciate that they went out and actually fundraised versus just asking for money. So I think it should be considered, in my opinion, not just because I'm biased for computer engineering students or this department.
Something that I would like to point out as well from James. I happen to be a member of this club for the past years, but they have fundraised a lot of money. I believe Stu Steiner mentioned they have fundraised about $3,000. They're willing to invest some money in this conference, but they're hoping to save some of those funds because every year the Association of Computer Machinery hosts a job fair as well, where students can actually potentially find jobs with big companies like Amazon, Itron, and other companies that come down. But I don't know if any of you have any questions for the gentlemen and women. Yes, go ahead, DJ.
How much have you guys currently raised so far for this upcoming event?
We currently can fund the event, however, that would be depleting our current funds and render us in serious trouble as Frank mentioned, we do numerous events, and we'd have to put all our eggs in one basket in this one event if everything went bad.
And in terms of money that you guys so far have raised, do you know exactly how much?
This year, in the first week, we've only managed to fundraise $160. Last year, we managed to fundraise $1,423.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion?
Can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
As a student that's participated in the programming competition, it's 6 hours of solid work, but it's practical experience. And you take breaks, and there's some snacks out there to go eat to kind of take the stress off. But it really is a competition, and you're competing against Stanford, and that's a pretty big cliff to approach. So it's a really productive learning experience, as well as just getting together with programmers.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I think we'll be deciding on this matter on the next council meeting. We'll be resuming business on the next council meeting, where you'll have the opportunity to vote on this matter and approve whether we can provide the requested funds to the ACM club. Thank you so much. So we move on to the next discussion items, which we're going to skip over appointments unless there is any objections, since we don't have any appointments to make. We're going to go into announcements. The first announcement is, of course, the ASEW committees. I don't know if DJ would like to make a comment or any announcements.
So pretty much as of now, students have been, well, first of all, thank you, Frank, for letting me speak. So now, all the committees are open. So if you guys all are chairs pretty much of certain committees, so I would highly encourage you guys going out there and say, hey guys, or to the students, this such and such is chair of this committee. I would love you to be able to get involved and to be able to just go express that to even in your classrooms, because as you know, we need more students on these committees. We currently have about I'm going to say about 20, maybe 25-ish students already have applied, which will be over. We will go over appointing these within the next coming months, or within the next coming month. So keep going.
If I may, real quick, I was talking to Samson actually earlier about it, and the sign-up sheet we had for kids who are interested in getting into committees was, what was it, about 160?
There's like 160 students. We have emails and names of about 160 students.
So would that be possible for that to be sent out? That way we can try to reach out to them and try to get those students involved on our committees, because I know I'm the chair for I think 4 different committees, and I would like to try to get all those students that tried to sign up and try to get them involved instead of, like going out to find kids who may or may not be involved, actually know the ones who actually really are dedicated to trying to get involved.
So Lynette actually already has typed up exactly all the emails and all the names, so we'll be able to send that out to everyone.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I have it. I was going to make an actual email list, so that way, if you guys want the list, you can just send a blank email to all 160 students, and Ethan showed me how to black carbon copy them, so they won't know. Blind carbon copy, so they won't know who else was in the email, so you can just send it to yourself and then carbon copy them blindly, I guess. So they won't see anything from the other students, so it's basically like you're sending an email to them only, basically.
That'd be great.
Quick question: are those all the emails and students that have shown interest
Yeah, those are the
during the
students
summer
that we talked to over the summer. So those would only be freshmen and then a handful of transfer students.
Okay.
So you should also try other means of advertising as well. So.
Is there any other comments on that announcement? So we move on to the next announcement. If Kyle would like to make that announcement in regards to the athletic program and please.
Yes. So Friday or Saturday's game, I talked to the director of athletics, Bill Chase, yesterday, and he basically said that they're going to provide pizza and a DJ, just the bare minimum, and he just wants to see what the student body, how they react to that, and ideally he would like to see the students love it and want to participate more and have more pre-game activities like that, and it to evolve into something bigger. And so on Friday or Saturday, they're just going to have bare essentials, and they would like to see me as well as a few other people who would like to help out and just basically ask the students what they want to see before at tailgates, and if they want to see that, and what they would like to see there. So if anyone want to help out, probably 1 or 2 other persons.
Go ahead.
Also, like that Kelsey will be actually tabling over there as well for the voter registration. So I encourage each and every single one of you, if possible, to be able to go out there, support, and show ASEWU representation as well as Kelsey for the voter registration.
Would you recognize Kelsey?
I just want to make a comment. I know I will be there, not only just to do voter registration, it is to support Kyle and the athletic department, because I think it's a great thing what they're doing as being a member of a res hall last year. I think it's something that was missing was kind of like a tailgate kind of deal. So I definitely think this is a great opportunity to not only do kind of my own agenda, but as well as kind of put ASEWU out there to students as well as committees, that kind of deal. So if we could get more people, that would be great.
Right. Kyle, can you remind us of the location again at the time?
Yes, Dressler Hall has a basketball court, and that's where it's going to be staged, and it's going to be 2 hours before the football game. And ideally, he'd like to see all the freshmen, since it's their first home football game, come down and see, wow, this is a home football game. This is tradition. They just want to start something. So, yeah, 2 hours before the football game.
All right, sounds good. So next on the agenda is the homecoming, and I think Candace should speak of this since she has been the one that has been involved with the homecoming committee and all the planning, and I will also encourage all of you to get involved with homecoming week.
Yeah, I'll just read this really fast and then I have some stuff to add. It just says, homecoming is just around the corner. It's October 14th through the 19th. The theme is Red, White, and Swoop. Applications are now available in Pub 320 and Pub 303. This year, the homecoming pageant takes place the evening of Monday, October 14th. Also new this year is homecoming parade, which will be held on Saturday morning before the football game on October 19th. And the Eagles will be playing Southern Utah Thunderbirds at 5:05 on Bruce Field. So that's what the thing says. But kind of specifically, AS's involvement in homecoming. I sent out an email to you guys about a week ago. Some of you replied, some of you didn't. Thanks if you did. But we really need volunteers for a lot of different events. I went around to some of your guys' offices and kind of made you sign up. So I have most of you guys down, but if you have not told me what events for homecoming that you want to specifically help at, talk to me, I guess on Monday. I have a little sign-up thing in my room. Specifically, the things that we really need volunteers for are the kickoff, which is going to be really fun. We're going to have cotton candy. It's out on the campus mall Monday during the day. It's at noon to 1. There's going to be a mechanical bowl, cotton candy. This is really just for the students to know what's going on, know that, hey, it's homecoming week. This is sweet. It's going to be a really fun week. We're going to get students stoked for that. So as many people from AS can be at that one. That would be great. And then the food drive is on Thursday from 1 to 3. That one we only need a few volunteers for. I probably have enough that you guys signed up for that. Also the 5K, it's that morning. And then this is Kyle's department too, so you can talk to Kyle about that. Sorry, I can't talk. Talk to Kyle about that if you want to. But a lot of us have signed up for that. We thought it'd be fun to run all together. So I have some of your sign-up sheets, and I'm going to go run them over. They might be closed now, but on Monday, I guess. So if you want to run the 5K with us in the morning, that'd be fun, Rep AS. And then we really need people to help from the parade to the tailgate bash, which is on Saturday. And yeah, so basically just get back to me if that's something you want to do. Also, can we just quick raise your hands really fast if anyone wants to help me decorate the office for homecoming?
By the way, so there is this competition that goes on, and they go into administrator's office, and all the offices that get involved, you essentially can win the award for the best decorated office. So Kendall is trying to make sure that we take the championship. So I would encourage you to participate.
Still sucks.
Oh,
was it my office?
Was it you?
Here's the thing. Do you guys want to know? You guys want to know who's on the committees to select whoever wins? They are.
No, Richard runs that. It's out of my department.
Hey, last year's in the past. This year, who's taking the cake? Let's go, baby.
So can I quick jump down? Can you raise your name if you want to help?
Raise your hand.
I don't know exactly when we'll be decorating, but I need help shopping and.
Yeah.
So if you want to have some sort of involvement in it, raise your hand.
Raise your hand if you want to help decorate the office.
We should do it red, white, blue style.
Or red, white, and blue. Thanks for raising your hand.
Susan, you raising your hand?
Oh my God, I have one decoration on the stream off. We're gonna everyone's going.
What is that one ornament?
It's not very simple at all.
I did it last year.
One phone machine in the office.
Okay, so I got Kelsey. So for decorating the office, I got Kelsey, Samson, Samantha, DJ, Frank, Lynette, Ryan, Mariana, Cassie, and Alaska. Anyone else? Are we good? Okay. Perfect.
Please make sure you have somebody clean up. Please make sure you have somebody clean up.
And then one more thing, sorry, kind of a long thing, but I have like I said, I have the list of volunteers. I'm missing some people, but I'll make specific group emails describing if you're volunteering at the kickoff, what exactly you'll be doing, when you need to be there, what you need to wear. So you'll get an email so you know exactly what you're doing for what events you signed up for. That's all.
The chair recognizes you.
Talking about decorations, actually. So this year I want to be in the parade. So Nick has graciously volunteered his truck to be decorated and whatnot. So again, that's something that you want to jot down, decorating his truck to pimp it out, a little bit of ASEWU spirit. And I encourage each and so last year there was only probably 5 people that showed up because again we have different organizations that we're part of. But this year I'm really trying to encourage that each and every single one of you guys are actually there to represent ASEW and as a whole, because once we're there as a single unit, I feel like every student is going to be able to recognize, oh, that's the student government.
Does anybody have spinners or anything that we can put our names on?
Can we get rollerblades and rollerblade and throw out candy and stuff?
Go ahead, Samantha.
Well, we're still we're gonna rollerblade uphill. I'm just putting it on. There is the opportunity for people this year to decorate the night before in the field house. So they're going to open it up to pull in trucks and flatbeds. And what would be really cool if you all are going to do a float or decorate mixed truck is to have ASEWU there while other groups are doing it, because I think that gives you really great exposure. So just keep that in mind. And that starts at 7. Mike Campitelli and I will be there until we're done, right?
So 7
until done.
Friday.
The Friday night before the parade, we're opening up the field house to do some decorating.
So are people going to help decorate the office? You want to help decorate next truck too?
By default?
Okay.
Yep. All right.
Anyone else that didn't decorate the office but wants to help with the truck? No?
Ms.
Okay,
Grace?
perfect. I'll coordinate that.
All right. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, for providing us your truck.
Thank you, Nick.
It's a monster truck, right? Thank you so much, Nick. So we move on to the next item. I'll let DJ speak about the EWU blood drive. I think it's very important that we all donate some blood and just kind of collaborate with this as well. Go ahead, DJ.
I put on up to make sure that even the Provost and Julian Smith as well as Dr. were able to see this. This is our first event this coming Monday, actually, from 9 in the morning till 4:30. And we will be having an ASEW table there, so that way students are able to look at the committees and sign up, as well as Kelsey will also touch bases on this and later on. But I know that you guys are busy and have classes and are hard-working students. I would encourage you again, a lot of encouragement in this moment, to help out and just show your representation and show them that we care and let's make this event a success.
Go ahead, Brandon.
I'm going to be out in the commons area handing these out, throwing them at people. So if you want to join me, it'll be awkward and fun. On Monday, throughout the day.
All right, thank you, Brandon.
Does
anybody else have a question? Go ahead, Kendall.
Oh, I was curious if there was times that we could do the table or.
Yep. So I was gonna do a sign-up sheet. That's gonna be like what we did with what was it?
Name
Fest.
Thank you. My mind's going blank. So same sheet. Same concept. You put your name on there at the time you're
Monday though.
Monday. Yep.
So don't we need to do that right now?
Yep. So I'll be printing that off right now.
Okay.
The minute though.
Okay.
All right. Is there any other questions? Sam, do you have a question? No? Anybody? All right. Yeah. Go.
It's not a question, it's a comment. I don't know if you're going to bring it up or not, but I know Edie sent an email and he can kind of just talk about it after I just kind of speak about the registration at the ASEW. I more than encourage you guys to show up at 11:45 because that is when Senator Michael Baumgartner is going to be there. And
hold on. Are you moving on to item
it is
D?
part of D.
Okay. Sorry for that. Go ahead.
And I more than encourage you guys. I really would love your guys' support, not just myself. I think it's really important. Senator Baumgartner really wants to meet with the student government. That was one of his main things he wanted was to meet with us. So if there is a good representation of us there, I think it'd be just a great showing to him. If Evie would like to talk about kind of the importance why, then...
Sure.
Not to put you on the spot, I apologize.
No, that's okay. Everybody knows that, we're in the Eastern Washington University is in the 6th district, right? Each of the districts in Washington gets one senator, just one guy representing that whole district. And our guy is Senator Michael Baumgartner. Michael Baumgartner is not so bad of a guy. He sits on the Higher Education Committee, which means he determines what goes through higher ed, right? He also sits on the Ways and Means Committee, which means he determines what money gets sent out. So when we got higher ed and we got money, we kind of got someone who we really need to touch base with. Last year he proposed a 3% tuition decrease that didn't go through, but he did, however, and was instrumental in the reason why we're not paying extra tuition this year, except for international students. I don't see any here, but we'll still need to look into that. But he is our advocate. He loves students. He does think that students can be a bit of a, and I know I'm on the record right now, so I'll be very careful here. I have heard him say that, quote, students are a weak constituency in Olympia, end quote. He is uncertain, I think, that the student voice is as powerful as it actually is. He does believe in higher education. He believes in really, really making making sure that everybody gets into the workforce with good schooling under the belt, and we're those folks, right? We got a lot of asks from the legislature this year. We should go to the senator on Monday, and we should make a good showing. We should show him how able we are, that he represents amazing people in the 6th District, student government and the constituents that we represent, and through us, him. Okay? Thanks. Sorry. Thanks.
Quick question. Can you please repeat the hour, the time, and date?
Yes, Senator Michael Baumgartner will be taken to the NPR to be shown the blood drive, and he will be there at 11:45. That's when we have access to him, to talk to him, and speak to him for approximately, it's only about 15 minutes, correct? So we only have, yeah, we'll try to stretch it out, but it's 11:45 NPR this Monday.
I would recommend to every single one of the council members that you bring your EWU sweat pull-up. What do you call it? Pullover sweatshirts or
corporate jacket?
Your corporate jacket, no. Bring your pull-up sweatshirt. Make sure you wear it. We want to make sure that we are representing the students of Eastern Washington University. It's very important for us to be very active and engaged civically and legislatively as well. We need to become aware of what the different legislation that's taking place in the state of Washington. And perhaps we might even have the chance to bring them up to our office and show them around our office and sit down with them and talk and let them know how much we care for students and how important it is for us to keep tuition low, especially with such a large population of first-generation low-income students at our university. So I really want you all to show up and hope that you can make it.
Should be on everybody's calendar.
All right. Is there any other comments or questions about item B? If there is none, we move on to item E. Please make sure to submit your office hours to Mr. Navarro or Ms. Molinero, present here with us, by this Friday, October 4th, so by today. The office hours will be approved by next week's council meeting, Wednesday, October 9th. I don't know if Nick would like to help me with the interpretation that we came down to in regards to the bylaws and establishing your office hours.
Sure. So essentially where we're at is, obviously you guys know you're required to work 10 hours a week. 4 hours is all that we're asking that you put down in stone and schedule out that will be approved. Those are the hours that people know that they can come to your office and find you there and speak with you. That does not mean that you only work 4 hours a week, or that does not mean that you have to have 10 hours in your office per week, but you have to have 4 hours blocked that you will always be in your office during those times.
With that being said, so after those 4 hours in your office, of course, the rest of the hours are open to you to go to meetings, assess your work, but you also, this is not a work-at-home kind of environment, so if you do not have anything else to do, no meetings to attend, no other ASEW business to do, like table for the neighborhood festival and hand out t-shirts, you're expected to kind of be doing some work in the office, catching up on business and making sure that you're representing the students. Thank you, Nick, for that interpretation. So moving on to the next item, if there is no other objections or comments, is there any questions? Moving on to the next item, item F. So the next EWU Board of Trustees meeting has been moved from November 22nd to December 3rd. The location and the time will be announced later. Ms. Grace, do you know if we have any? Okay, so they haven't announced it yet, so as soon as they do that, we'll post it and make sure that you get that information. Is there any questions in regards to the Board of Trustees meeting? Go ahead, DJ.
It's not more of a question, it's more of a comment as well on this one. From here on out, it should be, as you guys already now started posting up the previous comments from last year from students on our walls, which are kind of looks nicely on the kind of red looks really good on the walls when you're walking by it. But this is it. This is the final, the hour as far as what we need to get from the students. So everything that we do, everything that we need to do, we need to start taking in ways that we can get students' input. And our committee, we have a committee for that, and this committee needs to start really, jumping on board and executing the things that we promised from the retreat. So I encourage you guys to let's get back on track within that committees as well as the other committees that we formed from the retreat, and utilize that bond that we made over there. Thank you.
All right. Is there any other questions or comments? Yes, go ahead.
Can we break it down? I want everybody to be clear on our pathway to how we're doing this, right? So, and I'm not sure we are because, well, I know I'm not, so I'm not sure everyone else is either, right? We've submitted a polling question to the IRB, right? Yeah. We're going to have an open forum on November 8th, right? That we're going to prepare to. After that open forum, we're going to poll the students with that question from the IRB and then collate that data. And we're also going to be promoting the open forum and the poll, right? Yeah. So those are 3 different committees. One
organizing on November 8th,
Exactly.
on the IRB. Okay, all right. And that, am I right on the money there? Right? Is everybody? Okay, all right, cool. Thank you. Sorry.
Do you want to make any comments?
No,
on
no,
this?
just as Evie described it, that's exactly what we're doing. Because, thank you first of all. I want to thank Samuel as well as EB and Jose that worked on the IRB questions. Without them, we will not be, where we are, or else we'll be delayed.
I didn't work on
You didn't work on the IRB?
this.
What was it? James was on it. Oh, just Samuel and Jose?
And James is also on the
As well as James. I appreciate you guys for make sure that we're back on track. And again, I just saw that we have some sort of Ms. Grace, what would you call it? Those boxes.
Wait, they're ballot boxes.
But
They're the original voter ballot boxes.
Exactly.
When we did them.
So we I just went in there and we have the original ballot boxes, so we can actually put that everywhere that we need to, where students have a lot of student trafficking. So we can keep track as far as to what they want, and from here on out, like I said, as much as we've seen the presentation, it doesn't seem like whatever our input doesn't matter to them, but we still need to concentrate as far as to our students and represent them correctly. So thank you.
All right. Is there any other questions or comments in regards to that? Are we all on the same page in regards to the Board of Trustees decision-making process? So our decision has to be made by December 3rd, and we have to submit a report with the final decision of the Associated Students of Eastern Washington University, and that has to be a unified voice in which we represent the students at large, whether we agree on moving to a new semester-based system or whether we agree on staying and remaining in our current quarter system that we have. No questions? All right, so one last thing that I forgot to mention when I was speaking about the office hours. So you were all provided with a blue form and a yellow form. Am I right, Ms. Grace? And that was provided by Ms. Grace to you. So it has 15 hours in which you're supposed to kind of like log in your hours and your office work. And of course, you will log in the 4 hours that you're required to work in the office. For the rest of the hours, if you're outside meeting in places, make sure that you write it down in the back side. It has a section for comments. Those I would highly recommend that you turn them in to me by the end of every second week, meaning on a bi-weekly basis. When you have finished the first sheet, then you turn it in to me, and then there is another sheet for the rest of the month, and then you turn it in to me. And the reason for that is because at the end of every quarter, we all have to submit and provide a report to the ASEWU Superior Court, and they assess our performance. And it's very important that we make sure that we keep track of everything that we're working on, our special projects, your office hours, because they have to review that information. Would you like to make any comments, Nick?
No, but I will say one thing in case you didn't know too, is that your office hours that you block off, make sure they're between 8 in the morning and 5 at night. In case that wasn't clear.
Midnight to 2 a.m.
Is there any other comments? All right, so yes, go ahead.
This is kind of related to the bylaws. As you already know, I sent out the revised ethics code that you worked on from the retreat. Please look over that and make sure that you approve of it, because I want to make sure that we add that to our council meeting agenda so we can have it bylaws and then send it out to RMP. Sorry, James. And then I get that approved and hopefully turn into a bylaw.
All right. So with that being said, if there is no further questions, the chair would like to entertain the motion to adjourn our meeting.
I have a question.
Yes. Go ahead.
I have an announcement-ish. Is that okay?
That's all right.
I've been talking with EWU, and we're trying to collaborate a Halloween event for the day of Halloween, which is a Thursday. I will be meeting with them next week to talk more specific details. I have a lot going on. But if you guys would keep that in mind and maybe come out and help us with any doing pumpkin carving or buying for apples or something for the kids. We're going to do trick-or-treating throughout the day. So, yes.
I would like to remind all of the officers that we are supposed to represent the EWU River Point students as well, so that's something that we might want to look into. All
right, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Are they going to want funding from ASEWU? Because if so, we should probably get that approved by, at the this upcoming meeting. Otherwise, we've got to wait 2 weeks to approve it. It's late.
Okay. I'll talk to them on Monday.
Okay.
And see what works for them.
Thank you for reminding me that, because Ms. Grace, what was the date that we need to?
It was 8th and 9th.
October 8th and 9th is, I believe, is an.
Tuesday is the 8th. But 9th, we told them we weren't going to be there.
So when was? What is it? Was
3
it?
to 6.
3 to 6 is pretty much informational fair. So ASEW is going to be having a table there. I know that I'll be there with Samantha to represent ASEWU. And so, if, in case that you guys want to make sure, show your faces. And, the times is from River Point. Yeah, it's going to be at River Point. If you guys need a carpool, I'll be driving, so we can arrange that. 6.
Wait, not 3 to 6. October 9th.
October 8th.
At 9th, but 9th is your council meeting, so that's why I told them.
We're only going to do it once.
So October 8th from 3 to 6.
3 to 6.
All right. Is there any other questions, comments?
Thank you very much.
All right. So there is no questions, comments?
Chair Cole, Chair
Yes.
Navarro. I move
Go ahead,
to
Meg.
adjourn this meeting.
All right. So it's been. Hold on. So Kelsey Kelly has moved to adjourn the meeting. Would anybody like to second it?
Second.
All right. Brenda Hargis has seconded the motion. Are there any objections? This meeting has adjourned. Thank you all.
Before